Hello there and welcome to a new video on my channel, and this is a lot different than what I usually upload to this channel, but that's because this is one of the two special videos that I have for you for hitting 100 subscribers a few days ago. And in this video I'm going to show you how I make my custom Super Mario Maker music, but I'm not going to show you every single project I've done over the past like 4 years or something. I don't even know the exact number of years that this channel has been alive. But I think it's at least 3 years. But I am going to show you some of my earliest projects, and I'm just going to show you what my usual thought process is behind making these channels and these edit themes, and yeah, explain it how I make these sounds and stuff. So let's get into it. Alright, so I have Ableton opened up here. It's the DAW I use to make my music, or it stands for Digital Audio Workstation, or basically just music making program, whatever you like to call it. And this is where I have been making my music for the past like what, 7-8 years maybe even, and that's a very long time for me, so I'm quite proud of where I am right now. But currently I have the Underground edit theme open from Super Mario Galaxy. It's the very first edit theme I uploaded to this channel, and if you haven't listened to it for a while, here is a quick demo of what it sounds like. So yeah, this is probably the first edit theme I made, as well as the first one I uploaded. And I'm still quite proud of it because, well, like I said, it's the first one I ever made. And because of that, I think I did a pretty good job. I think I could have done it a little bit better nowadays, but I think for what I did back then, I am actually still quite proud of myself. But anyway, let me just quickly explain my thought process behind making this edit theme, because usually the Mario Maker edit themes are quite complicated, because you have 7 individual layers of well, sounds. They can consist of drums, bass, just normal instruments like guitars or synths or pads or pianos or anything you can think of. And there's usually always like 1 or 2 drum channels, 1 or 2 bass channels, usually just 1, and then you have the rest of the channels for just other instruments like synthesizers, arpeggios, which are just really fast rhythm or sequence synthesizers, things to fill out the emptiness that the track otherwise has. And I think I did a really good job at just well, dividing these sounds up into channels. And it's kind of what I usually do for these edit themes, is just kind of think about how the channels sound like, and not really the full track, which is kind of backwards in some people's minds, but that's how I like to think. And I think I do a really good job at that, because I'm really a big fan of the Mario Maker 2 soundtrack, and just listening to the channels by themselves, it's one of my favorite Mario soundtracks, and definitely a very underrated one. I never hear people talk about it, but I really think it deserves a lot more attention. But anyway, let me just quickly go through these channels one by one to see how these sounds were created and what I thought of, like what they should sound like or whatever, just explaining a little bit about each channel. Starting with, of course, channel 1. And this is kind of a weird channel because of how it started, because this is how it sounds like again. It's a very basic synthesizer and very basic synth line as well. It plays like 1 note at a time. And I think I did a decent job at this channel. I definitely wouldn't have put this into the edit theme if I made it now. But hey, it's pretty neat, I suppose. And what this synth is really weird, because in Ableton there's a feature where you can transform audio into MIDI. And MIDI is basically just a big clip of notes that you can play, like the ones you see right here. And when Ableton transforms audio into MIDI, it creates this default synthesizer with like 2 different layers. Like one has some sort of saw wave and the other has this sort of electric piano. I'm actually going to show you it right now, because this is the saw wave. It's a really like resonant saw wave as well, and it kind of sounds really weird. And then you have just kind of electric piano sort of sound, which sounds really vintage and stuff. And those 2 layers combined make this sound, which sounds really weird and really interesting. Also a little bit like dull, maybe even a little bit basic. But I mean, I quite like the sound. I liked it enough so that I could use it as a channel. And what I did was basically just follow the notes that the original song plays. The original song in this case is Space Athletic, I think it's called, which in the original game is heard in some platforming sections, like I think in Battle Rock, Dreadnought you have one, some small galaxies as well, like Flip Switch Galaxy I think uses it as well. And yeah, I just followed the original song's line. I think I actually got it wrong because I'm actually gonna look up the original song. Let me quickly take a listen. Oh no, I did get it right. So yeah, it is a G sharp, A, and then an A sharp, or a D sharp and an A sharp combined, so that's a kind of progression that the song does, and I just followed it with this synth line. And I think it sounds really cool as an intro, and then for the rest of the song it just plays the C note and the F note, and that's all this song does. And at the end, like around the second half of the song, I switch it up a little bit. Which I think I did a really good job at that, actually, now that I listen back to it, because it uses the same notes like the C and the F, but I think the extra like energy coming from the synthesizer really like fills up the space in the song. And then at the end, instead of doing the that, I don't follow that with this synthesizer, but I just do this. Which, now that I listen back to it, it sounds really weird. I don't know why I did that, but let me just quickly actually just kind of copy this and see how this sounds, just to see if I did make the correct decision. Yeah, that does sound so great. So I think what I did instead was a little bit better, even though it's really boring, but I think it sounds better in the context of the whole song. Anyway, that's channel 1. And now coming to channel 2, this is just kind of a mediocre baseline in my opinion. If I would have redone the song now, I definitely would have made this one a lot more interesting, because right now, it just sounds kind of boring. Like, you have this really basic bass synthesizer, which is literally just a triangle wave with a little bit of distortion, and this sort of like noisy like bass pluck sort of thing, which is interesting when it's layered on top of the bass. And I think I was happy with that back then. Right now, I would have definitely done this one differently. I definitely would have redone the whole editing, because in the context of what this entire song is like, this bass line is is fine, but yeah. Definitely not one I'm too happy with nowadays, but it does the job. It's fine. Moving to channel 3, we have this classic sort of 8-bit synthesizer. And literally all this is just a pulse wave, which sounds like this. So basically just a sound you would have heard on the NES as well, which is really stupid, but I guess it works. And then this sine wave layer on the top. I don't know why I laid it on top. I think it just sounds a little bit more interesting with this extra sine wave. It's a little bit higher octave. Yeah, I quite like this section though. I'm proud of myself for this one, even though it's just 3 notes repeated the entire time. That's basically all it plays, and it loops the entire time, but whatever. It sounds pretty cool, and I think the entire sound is also quite neat, that it's really basic, but I think it actually really works. I actually quite like the sound just because of how basic, but also how, not really interesting, but it just sounds quite nice in my opinion. So I think I did a decent job. Moving on to channel 4, and this is basically just a drum line, which I really don't like, actually. This is basically the only channel in this entire song which I would basically never ever listen to, because it just sounds quite bad in my opinion. Like, you have 2 layers here, one which is just a filtered and delayed drum beat, which I don't know, man. I don't know why I did that. And then just really cheap sounding drums. But I guess it kind of works. I'm not proud of this one, to be honest, but hey, I guess it's fine. And then of course I switched it up here, with the second layer being unfiltered. But yeah, not really a great channel now that I look back. Channel 5 though is much better, and I actually quite like this channel. It's basically just a couple of hi-hats and a hi-hat loop, which pans from left to right. Well, it's actually not panning from left to right. It kind of does this really interesting filtering automation thingy where it filters on the left channel and then it filters on the right channel and it kind of switches around. Sounds quite interesting. Yeah, I definitely like this channel quite a bit. But then comes my favorite channel of them all, Channel 6. And this is still one of my all-time favorites, if I'm being honest. Just because the sound... I love this sound so much. Especially this sort of like... I didn't even know what this is. Like, this is kind of a synth pop thingy, I suppose. And this is just a really weird, plucky... I didn't even know what this is supposed to be. But I really like this sound. And then just a soft, extra smooth layer. Smooth pad layer on top. Just finishes off this entire channel. And together, I think they sound really, really nice. I'm really proud of myself for this one. And this is still one of my all-time favorite channels I've ever made. I could listen to this for like half an hour or something, and I would not get tired of it. This is such a beautiful channel. I love it. And moving on to the final channel for this song, which is this sort of like a combination of a drum loop and arpeggio, which I actually quite like, especially this intro with these... I think that sounds quite nice. And this synthesizer, it's a really boring synthesizer. It's just another saw wave. But I actually have quite a soft spot for these, like these arpeggio or sequenced synths like these. That's also why I love Channel 6 so much. I quite like this channel as well. And when you play them all together again, you get this underground edit theme. And yeah, even with the mediocre Channel 4 and boring bass line, I think it turned out really well. I think I did a great job for it back then. And yeah, let's move on to the second song. Alright, so the second edit theme I've decided to show is the snow edit theme for Super Mario Galaxy. And just a quick reminder of how it sounds like. And this is still one of the edit themes I'm, to this day, the proudest of. Just because I love this one so much. It sounds really nice. It sounds warm. It sounds chill. It sounds just really, really nice. And let me just go through it channel by channel once again. Starting with channel 1 is just this really basic drum beat. And if you've listened to the original channel 1, you notice that it does sound a little bit different. But that's just because I think the plugin that I use updated or something, or I don't know what the case is. But yeah, it does lead to the kick drum being a bit different than in the original song. But hey, doesn't matter anymore. I made it already. All I did was basically just program in some drums, and I used this plugin here, SSD Sampler 5. Sounds pretty nice. It's actually one of my favorite drum plugins. And it's actually free, so if you want to use it yourself, there you go. You now have a free plugin that you can use. Alright, moving on to channel 2. And this is a really interesting one when it comes to like how it was made. Because it all started with this little percussive loop, which I really like. And I think I actually made it using one of Ableton's samples. It comes with a whole bunch of different samples which you can use. It doesn't even show all of them because there's just so many. And I think I used like one that was 120 30 BPM or something. Okay, so I can't find it really quickly, but it was one of the loops that Ableton provides. And I just did a whole bunch of processing. And in the end, it sounds like this. Really like atmospheric and like kind of mid-range. I think I did a really good job with this one. And then layered on top of this, I have this really weird layer, which is just noise wave rising, as well as this sort of like shimmering effect, which is just using sort of like a marimba or whatever it is. Sounds really weird, but it sounds quite nice, and you can barely notice it. If you haven't noticed it, I don't blame you, because it's really hard to notice. If you have, congratulations. I like it. I thought it was a neat effect to show off, and I think in the full song, you can actually hear it if you listen very closely, but it's really hard to notice. And then for the second half, I introduced these sort of hits, which are actually taken from the original Super Mario Maker soundtrack, from the Super Mario Bros. 3 Castle edit theme, and I just did a lot of processing with them as well to make for these sort of like hits when the song gets a little bit more intense and when the key switch happens, if you call it that, like when the key of the song changes. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this channel. I like it. Moving on to the acoustic upright bass. Pretty basic bass line. It ends up switching here. Like a lot of these snow edit themes in the original Mario Maker 2 have these sort of like upright or acoustic bass lines, and I think it does the job pretty well in this song as well. I just used this Contact upright bass, which is another, like, I think it comes with the free version of Contact as well, and yeah, that's what I used. So, moving on to channel 4. This really bright, shimmering pad sound. I actually think it really fits as a snow pad sort of thing. This sound is actually quite interesting. I use this Vital plugin, which is another free VST or virtual instrument plugin. I don't know how I made this sound. I think it was a preset that comes with Vital, and I just changed it a little bit. A little bit of processing, and that's it, basically. I think it sounds really nice. Yeah, I like it. Moving on to channel 5, and this is my favorite of the two pad sounds, just because it's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less annoying. I don't think channel 4 is annoying at all, but yeah, it just sounds a little bit nicer in my opinion. And this is a sound that came with Ableton. It's called Juno Pad, I think. Juno Pad, yeah. It sounds really nice. Yeah, I like it. Channel 6, though, is by far my favorite channel of this entire song. It's this sort of, again, arpeggio, sequence synth line. And I am really, really proud of myself for putting this together. Because this is another song that I made like 3 years ago. Yeah, I really, really like this. Not only do I like the notes that it plays, but I like the sound of it as well, like the preset. So yeah, I'm really, really proud of myself for this one. Basically, all I did was just load this preset, Azimuth ARP Plux. It's like a really obscure preset because it's like a device in Ableton that I've never used except for this particular occasion. And yeah, I just followed the chords of the original song. It didn't really have any chords, but it did have some notes that the original song plays. So it's like a D up to an A, and then a D, and then an A. Yeah, and then later, of course, when the key switch happens, it's just transposed up one note entirely. And yeah, I really like this channel. I think I did a great job. And yeah, moving on to the final channel. Channel 7 is the flute. Which is actually quite funny because if you know the original Mario Maker soundtrack, specifically the edit themes, You probably recognize this sound because it comes from the Ghost House edit theme from the Super Mario Bros. Game style. And it's basically a preset in Massive, which is another VSD by Native Instruments, called Amsterdam, which is also ironic because I live in the Netherlands and Amsterdam is, well, the capital of the Netherlands. Really weird, but yeah, I just used this preset to play some chords and another chord line underneath. And I also layered it with this sort of like swelling pad sound, which just sounds really warm and rich, and it sounds so beautiful. And this is actually from a free plugin, another free plugin called Zebralet. I think it's just, yeah, it's called Atlantic Swell. I think it's a really nice. Yeah, I like it. And when we listen to the original song, once again, to the full song, I mean, I really, really like this one. I'm proud of myself for this one. And unlike the underground edit theme, which I kind of just went along the ride a little bit, like I did a little bit of that and a little bit of this and whatever, this one was actually quite, well, thought out. Especially channels 6 and channels 5 and 7 with the pads and the flutes. And yeah, I'm really proud of myself for this one. And that's actually going to be it for this video. I wanted to do 3 edit themes, but it's already a pretty long recording. And I don't want this video to be that long, so yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed me explaining a little bit how I make my edit themes. If you want to see more of these, like how I make music videos, then let me know in the comments. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next music video, whatever. So yeah, goodbye.